She's the real deal, keeping it real for real. Keeping it real with Wanda. All inclusion, no confusion. But he said, she said, clearing up the drama with Wanda.
IntellectualRadio.com.
It's Sunday, 2 p.m. Time for He Said, She Said.
Enjoy your Sunday with Wanda B and the He Said, She Said team on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartStation.
Time for He Said, She Said.
Let's get it started.
Hey, it is me, Wanda B, and it is 2 p.m. on a Sunday. This is our Sunday. This is our fun day where we talk about relationships. He Said, She Said was founded to help men and women communicate. As I struggled to say that word, I can communicate. So that was the goal, to help men and women communicate. So I love for you to join in with me today as we talk about love being blind. So the idea for this show came from the 3-week Netflix event that they had where they brought couples together, sight unseen, to talk in these pods. So they would go into these pods and the men would be on one side, the women on the other side comfortably, and they would keep rotating and talking to different men and women until they made a connection. So that's the premise of what today's show is about. Can love be blind? This experiment was to see if these couples, after talking to each other for a week, each phase of this lasted about a week, and at the end, they were to get married, get engaged, and get married in this short period of time, talking to each other, love being blind, communicating with each other, finding out about each other, seeing how they could connect. And then once you met, could you go on to marry someone this way? So I love to hear what you think about that. So I looked back to see, where does the phrase "is love blind, love is blind," where did that even come from? And it goes way back to Chaucer's Tale, 1405, where he said, he was the first to say, "For love is blind all day and may not see." And then Shakespeare then took it on and put it in several of his plays. He had 3 different plays with the term "love is blind" or some form of "love is blind" in them. Two Gentlemen of Verona, Henry V, and then The Merchant of Venice in 1596. So this whole concept of love being blind really goes back. So what is love being blind? I guess when you look it up, it says that love can see no fault. So when you say love is blind, is that love can see no faults or imperfections in the person he or she loves. When you love them, you do not see their imperfections. So I love to know if you agree, disagree. Do you feel you can love blindly? Do you feel it's even possible? So I'm going to use the cast of this 3-week event on Netflix, Love is Blind, to kind of demonstrate how this would actually play out in the real world of love being blind. When you do this experiment, can it work? So they started out with 8 couples that actually connected after sitting in these pods and communicating and asking, supposedly, I guess, the questions that make you fall in love enough to ask that person to marry you. So if you've seen the show, let me know. And I'm going to try to catch up with you guys on Facebook. I'm not there yet. I've just been talking. I'm going to, if you're watching on Facebook, I'd love for you to chime in. And T Bizzle with the giggle in the middle says, yes, love is blind all day. So is that infatuation? Is that really love? Some people say that you fall in lust before you actually fall in love. When you meet someone, does lust happen if you see them versus not seeing them first? Because I do believe that in this situation, they didn't see each other. So lust actually didn't play a part in it. But there was one couple that one guy brought up sexual things to every woman that came in there. So some women were really turned off by that. And there was a woman who actually liked the sexual banter to and fro. So the couples that actually wound up getting together in this were Lauren and Cameron. Now, Lauren had the challenge. Do I want to call it a challenge? I don't know, but meeting people, and then she is Black. and realizing that most of the people on the other side were white. And one guy kind of really made some racist jokes to one girl named Diamond, who was black in this experiment. And he like asked her if she was a stripper. And so it's funny that when you're trying to find love, and will your name actually, can it play a part in how people prejudge you, and prejudgments actually come into play when you talk about this? Can people get past their judgments? Because he couldn't get past making jokes about her being a stripper, her name being like a stripper. And so now the women would go back after would meet with guys. They go back, and the guys would go back and discuss the people they met. So now they're actually meeting the same people. So if Diamond met with Barnett and thought Barnett was a-hole because he was making jokes about her being a stripper, the girl Kelly met him and thought, oh my gosh, I'm falling in love with him. She felt they really hit it off. And he said, I could see myself marrying you. She was really excited about that. And she felt like, okay, he could marry me. And other women were meeting with Barnett as well. Barnett met with Amber. Amber felt like they really hit it off. So they go back to their pods, the ladies, and discuss the guys and what they liked about the guy. Now, this is still sight unseen. So Toby says, I think it's blind because lust can only get you so far in a relationship. It eventually wears off, and you need love to carry the rest of the way. So love. So how soon can you love, though? Because this was a 3-week experiment. And I do agree that you have to get to a point where you do kind of love blindly. Not blindly, because then you do know, but then you have to see past that. So is that being blind? And are there things that you shouldn't be blind to? Are there red flags? Because at some point when Amber met with the one guy, Barnett, she said, I could love him even though he irritates me. So is that a red flag, or is that something she should see blindly past? And so that was the concept of this show. So if you've seen it, I'd love to know if you saw the show. Let me know what you thought about it. Do you think love is blind? Have you ever loved someone blindly, but then found out? So I'm going to tell you more about these couples because I do think that they were an interesting experiment to how they did love. So I'll go back to Barnett and Kelly. Barnett and Kelly really hit it off. He said, I think I could marry you. But when it came down to their week was over and he had to choose, he decided he wasn't going to actually choose Kelly. He was going to choose Amber. Amber to him felt more fun. Like the equally yoked seemed to go with Barnett and Kelly. That Kelly was everything that would match him on paper, where she was successful, he was an engineer, but Amber was the fun-loving girl. She was always joking. She was unemployed. She had left her job to do the show. She had tons of student debt. So this is all something, though, he found out after he decided he was going to actually propose to her. So now he's into this. So we'll go into who all. So Barnett decides to propose to Amber. He sees her, and they actually do. The lust then kicks in with those two. Lauren and Cameron. Lauren had to kind of tell Cameron, how do you feel about interracial dating? She says she's never dated outside of her race, but during this course of time talking in these pods, they say they fell in love and that they are going to trust this love blind experiment and to keep going with it. So then there was Lauren and Cameron. The other couple was Damien and Gianna. Damien was infatuated with Gianna. They fell in love, supposedly. I don't know if I believe that love is blind. So I don't know, even as I speak of this, do I feel love is blind? Does reality actually have to kick in at some point in time? And do you have to forget about love and see reality? Or do we actually believe in unconditional love? Because if love is unconditional, then it has to be blind too, right? Or no? I'd love to know what you think. So Damien and Gianna, they fought a whole lot. He proposed to her, and then she said she was going to prove she was really a woman, and she was going to propose to him because she knows she's a handful, and to deal with her, she was going to propose to him, and she proved to be a handful. I mean, in should you argue even in the first week, if you're going to get married in 3 weeks, if you spend majority of that time arguing, is love really blind, or are you blinding yourself to what reality? Are you actually need to take the blinders off? Because is there other things? And does that prove that love it shouldn't be blind? Should love be blind, or should love not actually be blind? And I do think sometimes we have to think about, should love actually be blind? Because to me, those were like red flags. There's no way I could do it. I don't think I could ever. I know I couldn't do the show like this because I'm not a true believer that love is blind, because I will let my reality take over my feeling of love. I'm not going to trust, or should you trust your heart? Do you trust your heart? Should you trust your heart to make lifelong decisions for yourself? Should you solely go by what your heart tells you? And my verdict is very out on that concept of love being blind, and letting all go, and just going with who naturally you fall in love with just based on conversation. Because I've had some great conversations, and then you see the person, you're like, okay. And that didn't work out for me because I couldn't get past the feeling of needing some attraction, which then leads me to the other couple that was Kelly and Kenny. Kelly and Kenny to me seemed the most actually fit for each other from the beginning. They seemed to hit it off. They weren't surprised when they saw each other that, oh, you don't quite look like what I thought. I mean, and the whole time they looked in sync. They communicated with each other well. Anything that adversities that came up, getting to know each other, they discussed very well. So it seemed like they were really a good fit for each other, and they seemed to be actually the strongest couple. But it turns out when all the couples got together to talk, she had not had sex with him, and she felt that he wasn't the type she normally went for. He was the redhead. She liked dark haired guys, but he wasn't physically the type she normally liked, and therefore she wasn't physically attracted to him, but knew that they had connected on another level. And so she kept trying to see him differently because she connected on that other level. So I love to hear what you think about that. Is that connection on another level enough to make you not put any emphasis into the physical part? Should you give up the physical feeling of love if you feel like you connect on so many other levels? I love to know what you think about that. Should your love just be blind? So Marquin says he couldn't do it. It needs to be a balance. What's the point of learning math if you're just going to go with your gut? So if 2 + 2 = 4, but you feel like your gut says it's 6, I'm just gonna go with 6, because so what if the facts say 2 + 2 is 4? You make a very good point, Marquin. That is a very good point. Like, there are some things that are truly factual. So if you are arguing in the first 3 weeks, and every time you're arguing whether they are on their cell phone, they don't spend enough time. The one girl mentioned the one couple that fought all the time. They complained over each of their cell phone use, how much they were on their phone. Because at first they didn't get their phones. The first week they were totally involved and didn't have the outside world, which seemed to be an experiment in itself. If you take away all outside disturbances and put you in Mexico, won't you just kind of love, because it's Mexico, you're on the beach, the sand, the air, the beauty, and all I have to talk to is you? So that first week after they all got engaged, now go back through the couples that got engaged. It was Lauren and Cameron. They were an interracial couple. Damian and Gianna, who fought from day one of meeting each other. There was Kelly and Kenny, who seemed like they were the strongest couple. Barnett and Amber, who actually liked Kelly at one point in time, or Jessica at one point in time, but he decided he wanted to go with the fun girl instead of the girl that seemed right. He wanted to be the one he felt he could be the most himself with, which was Jessica. Then Mark and Jessica, who had a huge age difference. She was 34. There was a 10-year gap between them. He was 24, she's 34, and the 10-year gap was an issue for them. And then it was Carlton and Diamond. So all these couples went off to Mexico. So after they got engaged, they went off to Mexico, and then that's where the one couple totally fell apart. The one couple, Carlton and Diamond, because after talking for a while, Carlton and Diamond really hit it off very well. They were an African American couple, and they hit it off very, very well. And so now they're in Mexico, and Diamond notices that Carlton is battling something or acting anxious or feeling like he needed to tell her something. And she's like, just tell me, you can tell me anything. We're going to get married. Because now they all have gotten engaged. After 7 days of knowing each other, talking in these pods, these couples all got engaged and to be married. So will they go through with this 3-week experiment to now be married? So now he needs to tell her a truth about himself. So he needs to come clean about it and tell this truth. And what his truth is that he has had physical relations with both men and women. And he feels that that's why this experiment was perfect, because she should love him for who he is. And his sexuality should not come into play with it. If you really love me for who I am, doesn't matter if I've had sex with men in the past. Ladies, how do you feel about that? Can you get engaged and marry a man knowing that he has been with men in the past? I think men wouldn't care though. So guys, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think most men don't care. As long as you'd add them to the mix, you've been with women in the past, as long as you're willing to add them to it, then they're all for it. So, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that would actually be an issue, vice versa. I don't think if a woman told a man they're getting engaged, that she's had sexual relations with women in the past, that would not stop a marriage. That, in fact, as long as you agreed, it may even enhance it if you told him that at some point in time, it could be some threesome in the future. I think some men would actually go for that. I may be wrong, guys. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. There's some things like, oh, I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on this one. I think guys would absolutely go for the concept of a woman being with another woman if she agreed that they could have a threesome. So I'm on IntellectualRadio.com, and I'm talking about love being blind. Do you believe that love should be blind, could be blind? And how do you feel about that? Is love blind? I'm typing at the same time. My two things, my head talking and me typing, obviously isn't going as well as I thought it'd go. So tell me, what do you think? Is love blind? I want to know, could you meet someone and let's say you only talked on the phone and you didn't even Skype. You didn't see that person and you guys didn't Skype, didn't whatever, Facebook, whatever you do, Google Duo, whatever you do that you can, I know that FaceTime, that's what it is called. Whatever you do that you could talk to someone and not see them. No, you just talked on the phone and you really felt like you made a connection. Could you say, I will marry you based on that connection? Could you do it? I want to hear, could you do it? I know I just couldn't. I don't believe there's too many factors that go into love, in my opinion. And tell me if I'm wrong. I want to hear about it. I feel there's too many factors that go into play with love to just do it based on that soul feeling. But is that wrong? Is it wrong for me to say that you should love blindly? Is that healthy? Can that still lead to a healthy relationship? Arranged marriages are done this way, right? In most arranged marriages, they may not have seen each other, but a family says that this adds up. The math is there. this adds up and it should work. So people do it. So obviously it works on some fronts. So I love to know what you think. Can love be blind? Can you love blindly without, now you've talked to the person, you have not seen them. So now these couples are meeting each other and they're noticing, he's not exactly what, or she is not exactly what I normally go for. So do you have a type? If you felt you fell in love and that person wasn't your type, would you go along with it anyway? I love to hear from you there. Do you feel like you have a type? Or would this dispel that myth with you that you have a type? Because once you meet them and they don't fit who you normally date, does that now mean, hey, I don't have a type anymore, I can go with whoever? So do you have a type? I love to hear from you whether you think you have a type or not. And if you met someone, fell in love, could you take away that type that you have because of who you fell in love with? So now they're in Mexico and they're all kind of loving in the moment. Some were arguing. The Damien and Gianna, they argued. They always found something to argue about. She said that she will sabotage a relationship when she feels it's going too well, and maybe that's what she was doing, is sabotaging it. I don't know if that's a thing. Do people actually do it? But that's what she said she was doing, was sabotaging. So it was at the point of Barnett was trying everything to make this relationship work. He wanted it to work, so he kept altering how he responded to her. She was a yeller. She'd call him out his name. I mean, he was really like, whoa. You could tell he wasn't used to this kind of communication with, and she felt that was part of her nature, part of her heritage. She was South American, and she felt like, as a Latina, that's how my family communicates, and that's who she is. And he's like, well, I'm kind of not used to that. So is love blind? Should love withstand her constant yelling and calling him out his name because love is blind? And I think that's the part of why I get confused by the whole concept of love being blind, because there are some factors that just love should not be blind. I think, in my opinion, love should have some parameters. Or am I wrong? And should you try to see past them? Because if you found someone that you love, is love that deep that it should be blind? Or have you ever overlooked things for the sake of love? I'd like to hear that too. So let's go back to Carlton and Diamond. Carlton then decides to break the news to Diamond that he has had. He really wants to see, can love be blind? And he's gone back and forth with this. And she says, look, confide in me. She wants him to be honest, tell her what's going on. Please be honest with her and tell her what is going on with him. So he then decides to go ahead and face the music and tell her that he's had these relationships. And she was like, wow. I mean, she was stunned, because she's like, why did all the time we did talk, you never mentioned this? And he's saying, should it make a difference who I'm not asking you who you've had sex with in the past. So really, should it make a difference who I've had sex with? If you say you love me, this shouldn't matter. And she's like, well, and this kind of matters and he felt like, no, it shouldn't. We're talking about love being blind. This shouldn't matter. And he kept bringing up that she was being typical. And so how she was responding was typical, but wouldn't there be a typical reaction for a woman finding out that you tell her you've been with men before? So do you think that should matter? Should these little tidbits of your past life, should they actually matter in the greater scheme of things? If love is blind, should it matter what type of person you've had sex with in the past? She felt like, whoa, you held that from me on purpose. And so now you're actually starting out lying. And he's like, no, I'm not lying. I'm I just didn't want to share that with you. And that's my prerogative not to share. So what do you guys feel about that? Do you have the right not to share, to pick what is best, what you feel is best for you to share about yourself when you get to meet someone? Now, this seems different because you're actually asking someone to marry you. So if you're asking someone to marry you, then if you're asking someone to marry you, then you should kind of divulge everything that you know could be a deal breaker in that pod before I meet you. Don't think that once I meet you, you're going to be so fine that that little piece of knowledge we just are going to overlook. I think that that is asking too much. Do you think that's asking too much, that you should? And does your sexuality, should that play a part in the relationship or not? Well, that couple he wound up calling her the B word, saying she was typical. She didn't really love him. And then talking about her wig and how she needs to go fix. I mean, he really got nasty with it. And she was just hurt. I mean, I really felt badly for her because I think she really did like him and didn't feel like she was wrong in being upset over him being gay or finding out he was gay or bisexual. I'm not sure which one he went by, or if he felt that was just something that happened, kind of like was that Tank? I don't know, the whoever said that if you had sexual encounters, does that really make you gay? So I don't know if he felt he was gay, but he felt like he wanted marriage and that shouldn't play a part in it. So should that part be blind? So the show just really kind of made you think about the whole concept of love being blind. So they're going on with their lives and going through this 3-week situation with each other. So they're all in Mexico and they're all deciding, do they keep going? Now not all of them are questioning themselves. Kelly and Kenny seem to have they seem to be the strongest couple and very tight and solid that they could go on. So the next phase of this was leaving Mexico and going on to live with each other for a week and meet each other's families. So the couples we have are Carlton and Diamond, who wound up cursing each other and saying, I can't deal with this. They got on the bus and headed home from Mexico, and we never saw that couple again. So the being gay couple, that didn't pan out, and we didn't see that couple again. So that turned out to, and I'm going to get to your comments. My computer has been going through something. And I don't believe it's the user. I mean, sometimes you can say, oh, you know what you're doing. I think I know what I'm doing. So it logged me out of Facebook. So I'll get back to you guys in your comments. But please keep commenting on any of the phases of this that I'm talking about. I'd like to know if a woman came to you and told you that she was bisexual or had sexual encounters with women in the past, would that make you say you could no longer date her? That could you go on with the relationship knowing that she had been with people of the same sex? Women, I'd like to hear from you. Do same sex encounters make a difference for you in relationships? Does that matter at all to you if the person you are dating has been with other men? Would that change your perspective of him? So John says, and give me a second. Me and my laptop, we're just having what is that? Mercury in retrograde. I'm dealing with you this week too. I don't know what it is, but he says most folks confuse love with lust and like with sexual attraction. Marriage, for the most part, has nothing to do with love. It can sometimes include love, but most often is contractual agreement. It's a 2 + 2 = 4. So Chrissy, the makeup artist, Chrissy, and you sell wigs and purses. Gotta tell people what you do. She says, yes, absolutely. Just because you have a type doesn't mean it couldn't work. I wouldn't want to miss out on potential love just because of my type. And that's true. I think sometimes we do need to get past those, that's my type, and this isn't typically my type. Because if that hasn't worked for you in the past, maybe your type shouldn't be your type. If your type is built on, and for this one girl, it seemed her one type was all built on sexual. Everything else seemed right in their relationships. They seemed to have all the same goals in life, but she was bringing it all down to the physical. And so, should love be blind, or is love doesn't seem to be unconditional? Then if love is a contractual agreement, then love is not unconditional, because contracts have conditions. Contracts are based on conditions. So love then doesn't seem like it you can have unconditional love and have this contractual agreement at the same time. Doesn't seem like that makes a lot that goes hand in hand. So so love is blind, but lust isn't. So John says love is blind, but lust isn't. So there was one couple, lust isn't blind. So that one couple that seemed to have everything, and I guess what you're saying is true, that they couldn't get to the point of lust. She never lusted for him. They'd sit up and talk all night, and they really hit it off. And she wanted to make sure that they could remain friends, but she never got to the point of lust. So to be in love, do you have to also lust? Can you have one without the other? Is it okay to love someone but not be physically attracted to them? So the Lauren and Cameron, the biracial couple, she had never dated outside of her race, and really was thinking a lot about what her family would say. He had went on to tell his family he was getting engaged, and she was like, well, I'm going to wait and tell my friends. I'm going to wait and tell my dad. I'm going to wait and tell my mom. And it seems like she was having just going with love, or going with the practicality of love. Like, what would their love look like to others? And that seemed to matter to her a little bit. So what would her dad, who was very pro-black, and I don't think you have to be pro-black and be against white, but I think she did factor in that doesn't mean one goes without the other. You can be in a relationship, but that's something that she teetered with. Can she remain true to her heritage and be in an interracial relationship? He had dated outside of his race and he was fine with it, but that was something that she was trying to come into grips with as they moved into the next phase of meeting each other's families. So if you had a criminal past, but now a straight up good person, would you still want him to love her? And that's why I really think love can't be blind. And I know that may be wrong and against all true love. Supposedly can be blind, and there can be things that are overlooked. But I do think, for me, and I'm is that right or wrong? I don't know. So can love be blind is what we're talking about. And this is based on the show that I watched on Netflix, Love is Blind. It was a 3-week event on Netflix where they had these couples meet each other sight unseen, get engaged. Before you meet each other, you get engaged. Then you start factoring in the life things. And then you only did all the way up to the wedding day. So we're listening to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com, and I'm talking about this show, Love is Blind. So let me know if you saw it, what you think. If you didn't say it, do you still believe that love is blind, though? You don't have to see it to believe. Can you meet someone, talk to them on the phone, sight unseen, and say, I love you, and then go forth with your true gut feeling that you love them and marry them? Could you do that? I would like to know, could you do that? You can lust after a person, but never actually love them. Love requires no contracts and doesn't require sexual contact or lust. So if that's the case, you can love someone blindly, that you could then, if love doesn't play a part in it, lust doesn't play a part in love, and they're two separate things, then you should be able to marry someone without the lust, because the contract of 2 + 2 = 4 in what we know about each other, then this experiment should work. That you shouldn't. So were they wrong with letting everything else play a factor in their love if love is blind? If love supposedly is so pure, then why do we factor anything else into it? Why don't we just go with, forget the criminal past, forget the lust, because I'm going to go with I didn't even see you, and I felt we had such a good connection. So of these couples who were willing to actually go with that. So for the one couple, Mark and Jessica, Jessica really liked Barnett, who chose Amber, and he didn't choose Jessica, but Jessica felt like she was more the on paper she had employment. They were about the same age, but he chose Amber. So it leads you to say when men choose someone who she didn't have a job, she when they go into the real world, she gets more into her financial part of it, that she's unemployed. She quit her job to do the show. She also wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and he starts to get overwhelmed like, wow, that's a lot to ask of a person. And should my love just be blind? Because he was feeling her. He just really felt they absolutely, of all the couples, had the physical attraction. They boasted about how many times they had actually been intimate over the course. And some of the other relationships had never been sexually together, even attracted to each other. And but that's okay to marry someone you had never been with sexually. I mean, that's how a lot of people actually choose to do things. So I didn't see that as being a problem when out of all the couples, some of them had not had sex yet. They really had only known each other a week. I know they felt like they could get engaged, but did you actually truly know them? But they felt they did, because that is the point of this experiment, to talk to someone so much, never see them, and see, can you just have that connection? I felt like that yearning to see what you look like, though, could be part of me feeling part of love, that adds to some of the mystery of wanting to get to know you. And I think that, to me, seemed like that could be part hindrance in this whole experiment thing, is that you are also you're going off the feeling of anticipation. Can anticipation guide you to want to meet someone? And so we have these couples, Mark and Jessica. So Barnett had came close to saying he was going to propose to her. In fact, he said, I'm kind of leaning towards I would propose to you. Jessica ran back and told everybody in the pod, all the women, and but in the end, he said no, and he chose Amber, who he felt was more, he brought out a spark in him. She was lively, and she liked the liveliness of him. And he liked that part that he felt like she made him come out of his shell a bit. She was like nothing he had experienced. And was that a good or a bad thing? And so Jessica decided to choose the other guy who showed interest in her, who was younger, but she couldn't seem to get past the age. So now they were going to go on and meet each other's families. We have Carlton and Diamond, who are out of it now. He revealed he was gay, and or he had sexual relations. I don't know if he considered himself gay, but he had sexual relations with guys. And for Diamond, that was a deal breaker that should have been said before they even got engaged. She gave back the ring and they were gone off the show. So Mark and Jessica have the 10-year gap. Barnett and Amber is the one where she wound up saying that she had debt, she was unemployed, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and now it was time to meet the parents. We have Kelly and Kenny, who seemed to be that everything was working in their relationship. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, except the physical attraction wasn't there in this Love is Blind experiment. We had Damien and Gianna, who physically, she said that he said this was the best he ever had. And she said, you wonder why I never told you that? So somewhere something was lacking sexually between those two. But could there be love? And this played a part in her irritation with him. And she was just always so emotional and on this roller coaster that he wasn't used to. And he sat down and said, look, I can't really do this roller coaster. And she said, you used to give me butterflies. Those butterflies are gone. Should the butterflies leave in the first 3? If you've known each other 2 weeks, I think that is a giant red flag that this is actually not compatibility. If you lose all butterflies in the first month of knowing each other, and should you actually get married if you don't even know how to withstand butterflies for the first week. Now I know butterflies fade in relationships, but I don't think they should fade that soon. And if they do, is that really a red flag if they're fading before you even get deep into a relationship, or am I being too lovey-dovey with the thought of butterflies? But I do feel that there is a phase of where butterflies shouldn't fade within the first 3 weeks. So, what do you think about that? So, do you think there are red flags in relationships that people ignore, and where any of these things actually red flags, and it wasn't love being blind? Were they allowing love to be blind and not paying attention to these blaring red flags that seem to be coming up? Or should we not look at things as red flags and just get over that obstacle? Like, is that a problem that people have, judging things at red flags versus choosing to find a way to get over this hurdle? Like, you're in a track race and you're getting up to a hurdle, and you know the distance that you need to jump over it to keep going. And so, should we be allowing more time to get over hurdles in relationships and not look at them necessarily as flags that mean to stop, but actually mean that this is a time to learn how to get over this hurdle? So that's something that came up in the show, Love is Blind. So if you saw it, let me know. If you saw it, what you think about it. I'd love to know. That's what we're discussing today. Should love be blind? Like, I guess, like the arranged marriage type. Hey, Melvin. So Logan says the whole premise of love being blind is a lie itself. So Logan, you said that the whole concept of love being blind is a lie. I think I agree with you. I think I agree that love can't be blind. We like to, in this beautiful world, think that love is blind, but love actually can't be blind. Carl said love is blind, but abuse is abuse. A nasty mouth is abuse. So, do you have to take the blinders off with love? And I'm not talking to the point of abuse, because these couples, they didn't necessarily. Hello, Melvin. I see your hand shaking. They're not all the couples felt. I think we know abuse, but they were just going off of, can I meet you? Can I fall in love with you? Never, sight unseen, and just keep moving forward based on the connection. We're going purely off this feeling of connection. And I think I really feel I agree with Logan that the whole premise is kind of, it's a lie. I don't think you can. Love is not blind. I don't think love should be blind. I don't agree. I don't. I would like to live in this fairy tale of love being blind, but I don't think it should. I just don't think it should be blind. So I'll go on with what happened with these couples. So now they meet. It's time to meet the families. So they're going on to meet each other's families, and Lauren prepares Cameron for her father and her parents, who are black, and that he now has to meet them, and then she has to meet his. And her dad is basically like, "You didn't ask my hand in marriage." He said, "This is kind of going fast," and he kind of asked him, "Have you ever dated outside of your race? How will you feel being the only white man in a room with all blacks? How will you deal with that?" And he felt like he could deal with it. I mean, that's all you can say, because if you really feel like you can't deal with it, then maybe you should be strong enough to step away from it. But he wasn't. He said he could go on, that wasn't a factor. And the whole time I felt like Lauren was not actually feeling him, or her doubts were very great. That the doubts of dating someone outside of her race, she really handled it. And so them living together seemed to be fine. She was used to being alone. And I think I hear a lot of single women talk about that. She was 32 and had never had a relationship, had never lived with someone. So now to go straight to that she was used to her space, would he be willing to give her his space? Uh, so that seemed to be an issue that that could they actually not take up each other's space? Could they actually leave room for you to be the individuals you brought into the relationship in this short a time of knowing each other? Will they even be able to just tell you, hey, I like my space, and you be able to give it? So he meets her parents, her parents. It seemed to go well. Did she meet Cameron's parents? I'm not sure if they showed that. I don't remember that or not. But the big thing was her parents, and her parents seemed to go with, hey, if Lauren likes it, we love it, but you better be good to our daughter. And so she was still questioning it and telling her friends, because what would her friends say of her being with this white man when she had never dated outside of her race before? So that came up as they did the second phase of this experiment in the second week of moving into each other. Damon and Gianna, they just fought consistently. I mean, really, they maybe had a night of passion again, but they'd be back fighting over everything, social media, over so many different things that they fought about. And then you go, should that be a red flag? Should that have been his reason to say, no, love is not blind, I can't marry you? So many things were coming up when they go back to their real lives and try to navigate through the real life version of them. So that was Damien. So Kelly and Kenny seemed to be, they met each other's families, and their families just really seemed to love each other. They both came from families that were, the parents were still married. They seemed to be like really joining as a unit in one big happy it really seemed like they were the strongest couple through the next phase of moving into each other's lives. They really did seem like they were a strong couple. That didn't change for them. So that was very interesting. And feel free to comment on how if you saw it, if you didn't see it, if you feel love is blind, that no matter what someone told you, could you see past it? Could you see past it be just for the sake of love? Could you see past that the person is gay, or not gay, but they had sexual encounters with people of the same sex? Could you let go of that and not read into that just to love that person? Could you say, that's not going to play a factor in it for me, and I'm still going to love you? Could you do that? So then Mark and Jessica really had an issue with the age. She still kind of felt like she liked Barnett. That was the one she really connected to. So she decides, well, I'm going to go see Barnett because we had a thing, and I know he chose Amber, but could he be second guessing himself? So I'm going to go see him. And you say, if love isn't blind or unconditional, it isn't love, it is lust. It is like, it's understanding, but it is understanding, but it definitely isn't love. So I don't know. I think love requires no contracts and doesn't require sexual contact and no lust. Then I'm confused. You said by your last statement of love must often is a contractual agreement. So a contractual agreement, does it not require contracts? Which one are you saying? Let me clarify that for me, because it seems like it either can be or can't be, but it can't be both. And so, and can you get past not lusting for someone to marry them? Can lust grow? Can love grow lust? Is that possible? Is that possible for love to can you start lusting after a person later? You're not physically attracted to them, but you love them. So now you start to lust for them. Can that happen in that direction? I would love to hear what you think. Let me know what you think. So the next couples, Jessica decides she's going to meet with Barnett and see if he's having doubts about himself choosing Amber. And Barnett is like, nope, seems like you may be doubting this. And she's like, no, I'm all in. And I think some people really just wanted the experiment to work or just stay on the show. I think reality TV does gear people to want to stay relevant in a show. And I may be wrong, but it seemed like maybe some of them were just going along to remain seen on the show, because it would make sense that they're not going to keep showing you if you're not in a relationship anymore on the show. So it seemed like that was definitely playing a part in this, is that some people were trying to stay relevant on the show and knew that they didn't still have feelings for the other person. So that then led all of the couples to move to the next phase of buying wedding dresses and actually deciding to get married. So now, with all these things that are coming up, one couple that had never had sex before, she said that she wasn't feeling him, but everything else was right. So I would love to know, out of all these couples, do you feel like they should get married? Lauren and Cameron, who was the interracial couple. She had never dated outside of her race and was willing to give it a try because she really seemed to be into this guy. John says, of all the scenarios you've described in the show you watch, we're all trying to negotiate and living together arrangement. They all were trying to make their conditions fit into the other person's conditions. So they had already agreed to get married. Every single one of these couples were now engaged, and now they're just finding out about each other. But they have agreed to marry, period. No matter what they knew about each other, they had agreed to get married before they actually met each other. So before they met each other, they all got engaged. Once they met each other, they were already engaged. Once Lauren and Cameron, the interracial couple, met each other, they were already engaged and agreeing to move forward like this. Damien and Gianna, who fought over everything, already agreed that we're going to see this to the end. We will get married. Kelly and Kenny, who seemed to be the strongest, except for she wasn't feeling him sexually and did not give in. They still were saying, okay, we're going to get married. Barnett and Amber, he's finding out that she doesn't have employment, and he would now have to, knowing this, he was a scientist, to be the sole breadwinner in this scenario. And knowing that when they're discussing buying the wedding dress, she doesn't want to ask her mother and is saying, I found a dress, it's like $3,000. And he's looking at how much this relationship could cost him. Would he still want to marry? Mark and Jessica, the age difference was huge. And his friends and mother saying, is this the right thing for you? If she's having so many misgivings with the age difference. And so it's coming down to this, and now the wedding day. So yes, with all their trying to make their conditions with the person, they had already agreed to marry. So now they had to make these conditions actually work. And do we think marriages could last if you just said, no matter what, we're going to make these conditions work? If every couple just said, no matter what, whatever roadblocks we keep running into, we're going to make this work, would this actually benefit more relationships than it hurts if you just decide we're going to make it work? So we get to the wedding day, and who all says I do? And so they're in the wedding dresses, and you find out when it gets to the part of who actually makes it. When it gets down to that wedding day is when the show all came to a head, and you find out who was actually going to make it. So the first couple they show is Damien and Gianna. These are the couples that had fought, but in the end, they had this big loving last few days together before the wedding day. And she had agreed that, hey, I want to marry you. So she gets up on the altar. She says her vows, and she says, I do want to marry you. And then he says, I don't. And they don't make it to the actual wedding. She runs off crying. She falls in the dirt. She gets up, and she can't believe he humiliated her like that. But he felt like we argued way too much to actually get married. And so was that the best thing for them? And was she just going through it for the sense of being married, that she had someone who had proposed to her and she felt like everything was right, and that was normally how their relationship would play out, is that the fighting doesn't mean you don't love each other. And he felt like he could not think about fighting with someone that much for the rest of his life. So John says they were trying to agree on the conditions of the marriage if it in the fact happens, love was not involved. And they're all saying that love was involved. That's why they were trying to get past all the different conditions, because they all said that we need to get back to what we fell in love with. And I think this comes up with couples all the time, is that life starts to take over and you start to forget what made you actually fall in love with that person. And you start letting the bills and the how much it costs for this dress, and that you yell all the time, and you're and what other people think about our marriage. If you took all that stuff away, which in the beginning, when they were in Mexico, none of that stuff was involved, and they all really, really loved each other. When you took no outside disturbances, when you took that away from from their unions, they all did well. So should people find a way to take away all the distractions so they could just focus on love, if it truly was love? And I think that's the part that is so, is love actually blind? Because you should be able to then get past all those things to continuously love each other. So one couple down who didn't make it to the altar, he said he doesn't, and broke, she felt her heart was broken, but I think he did the right thing for both of them. So for them, love was not blind. So I guess I wonder if they believe whether this experiment worked, didn't work. Is love really blind at the end of the day with this experiment? Did it actually work? Did it actually work of love being blind? I just don't believe love should be blind. Maybe love could be blind, but I don't believe love should be blind. I do believe the outside factors of the world will always play a part. And if you don't really have the tools to get past all these roadblocks, you won't make it past them. It's impossible. So love just can't be blind. And I think anyone that is blind faces obstacles. So if we thought about the concept of being blind, when someone is blind, they face obstacles. And they have to find different ways to go through life, because life isn't made for the blind. So the whole point of blind in itself is meant to be blind. Isn't I don't want to use the word normal, but it is considered to be a difference. It is a what do they call this? Not a disability. There's it is a, I don't want to use the word disability, but for lack of knowing the politically correct words to use for disability, it is a disability. So love, if blindness is a disability, why would you want to say love should have disabilities? That it shouldn't just be blind. So that's my take on it. So we have the next couple that decides, and this may be not in the order of the show, but it's in the order I wrote it. So the interracial couple, they get there, Lauren and Cameron, and he's so in love, he's crying, he is so into this wedding. Everything seems to be going the way he thinks it should go. And well, you said what they had was just lust at a starting point. They never had love. They feel they had love because it was, what's lust? Is lust a physical thing then? Because they never saw each other before they decided to uh go into a relationship together. They never saw each other. So for you, can you lust after someone without seeing them? Does lust happen before seeing someone? And I think it could. I think I agree with you to some point that you can lust after someone not seeing them. And it could be that lust, especially if they talk a good game, because game is meant to be something that to get you to a place maybe you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't know how to smooth your way past it. So I think I agree that you could be in that lust that isn't gone to love. So does love have phases of getting to that point? You can't just get into love from the beginning. You can't go straight to love and get past, skip over lust and go straight to love. Do you feel like lust is normal to get to that point before you get to love? I'd like to know what you think about that. So it gets down to Lauren and Cameron, and Lauren and Cameron, They both say I do. And they go on. So I went on to see how many of these couples are still married after this. And I'll tell you the end result when I get done with this. But Lauren and Cameron, that is the interracial couple. They do get married. They show them partying. They have a reception, and it looks like they had fun. So it looks like it actually kind of worked out for them, that the Love is Blind experiment worked. And me, I could never do it. This would not be an experiment I would last on. I would do. I have absolutely no desire finding out if love is blind. This wouldn't be a game show for me because I don't take love so cavalierly, I guess, to do this. And so the feeling of lust, can you get to love without lust? Does one need to get to the can you get past do you have to have lust for love? Which then will bring me to the next couple, Kelly and Kenny, who seem to be the strongest couple. They never argued. Everything seemed to go right. Love just seemed to be the only thing missing was the lust. She did not lust after him, and she said that she just was not sexually attracted to him, but he was really nice. And so John, you say they never fell in love. Love is not seen with your eyes. It is seen in your soul. Love has sight, but it is in sight of the eyes. But see, go back to the first. They didn't meet each other. So when they all agreed that they had fallen in love, neither couple met each other. They all had to get engaged before ever laying eyes on each other. You got engaged prior to meeting the person. You only sat in a pod with a wall between you and communicated with a wall between you. You never saw them. You got engaged before that point. So uh so love is not seen with your eyes. If it's not seen with your eyes, then they actually could be in love because they never saw the person when they declared love. It was based on just dialogue and a feeling, a connection. They all felt some connection, never meeting each other. And now we're putting the things that your eyes can see in it after the fact, but they all were made to declare loving that person and wanting to get married to them before they ever laid eyes on them. So then oh, you're saying they signed a contract for the show, and I'm sure they did. That there's some parameters. You may have even said that you have to go through. Well, no, they didn't have, or you have to do so much of it. I don't know what their contract said, and I'd be just making it all up. And I don't like to have a discussion where I'm going off of what I think they said. I don't know any of that. I don't know about their contract. I'm just going off of that. They did say that they fell in love with each other before they actually saw each other. So then that plays a part in them feeling like they had this soul connection, and then did the outside world then come into play and change that connection, like the guy who had sexual relations with guys. He felt like, if you love me telling you that should not make a difference. And he was hoping on this experiment actually working for him, that if this is true, this should not matter. That if this is true, then none of this, if love can be blind, if this experiment works, I can make you love me and be able to tell you anything and you still want to be with me. If love is truly blind, we will have such a connection that when I tell you that I have slept with men, you will say, you know what, I found out I love you that much that doesn't matter. But that didn't work out for them. So, which hence goes back to where the love can be blind. So Kelly and Kenny, she was not sexually, physically attracted to him, and she never had sex with him that whole time because she said she just wasn't feeling it. So they get to the wedding day, and you think, because she never made it seem like that was an issue, because she understood that she wanted this to work, and maybe this was a good thing that she wasn't sexually attracted, because everything else was so perfect. They were perfect for each other. So she decides that she's going to they both get up to the wedding day. He gives his vows. He says, I do. And she says, I don't. And he looked heartbroken, and he talked to the crowd and said, okay, well, and He though felt like the show kind of exploited him. He didn't want the cameras following him. He was truly hurt because I think he was somewhat blindsided. She was having these conversations saying she wasn't attracted to us, but she wasn't saying these things to him. And when you saw them together, everything just seemed so perfect, but she was not sharing what wasn't perfect for her. And he was willing, because many couples are willing to get married never having sex. That is a somewhat common thing, that people feel like you should get married without sex being a part of that. So he felt like that was totally okay to do. And so he never felt like that was any form of red flag, because that's what people do. They get married all the time without had actually having had sex or anything together. So that seemed to be fine. So so he walked away he wanted the cameras off of him. He was mad because he kind of felt like, why did you take me through all of this? I think he said that, and you knew you were going to say no. And he was truly blindsided because they had no cracks in their relationship. The Damien and Gianna, they fought the whole time. You were hoping that they wouldn't get married, but these two I actually thought would actually make it, and they didn't. So then Mark and Jessica, they're the ones with the age difference. Jessica held off. She was not physically attracted to him either, but they did wind up having sex before they actually got married. They did have sex, and he felt like that solidified their relationship. He felt even closer to her. And for him, he felt closer to her, and it kind of was like, you could tell that there were no fireworks that made her say, now I want to marry him because I've had sex with him. She was just going along with the show, which but for him, he felt like now he was even closer. And so it's funny how differently people can walk away from scenarios, both being in the same situation together. One walks away feeling enchanted with love, and the other one walks away feeling like, that was just okay. I still don't really want to marry you. So Jessica, at the wedding day, you could tell where it's going. Jessica says no, and Mark was heartbroken. And Mark's family, they were kind of pissed because there's some of the family. If you knew you felt this way, why did you wait to this moment to break the heart of my child? You can tell some of the mamas was ready to jump up and beat some booty over their child, and you leaving them at the altar like that. So that definitely was playing a part in it was an interesting experiment. And then is that all the couples? Oh, Barnett and Amber. So when went to meet his family, she was loud, obnoxious. She snorted when she laughed. They were a very quiet family. She talked about drinking all the time. I'll just drink. And you could tell that the family was very uncomfortable with the kind of person that she was. But he kept saying, I care a lot about what my family thinks. I don't know if I could marry someone that my family doesn't like. Then he also found out that she had all this debt. And could he withstand that? And they wound up saying, I do. In the end, they both said, I do. And they got married. And I'll have to go read later to find out if they actually are still together. This experiment just ended this week was the finale of the 3-week event of watching their love. Could they all wind up getting married? But they actually wound up getting married. So for the experiment, when you look at the whole thing, the Lauren and Cameron, I think she wants it to work. Like when I say yes to something, I cannot want to give up. So I know what that feels like. Like you don't want to be defeated, even if you see everything that could be wrong. You feel like you can work through it. And so I don't know if any of these couples that wound up actually getting married, the ones that did get married, Lauren and Cameron, the interracial couple, and Amber and Barnett, whether those two couples remained married. I'll have to go back and read. I think what I read for both is that they are both still, they check their Instagram. I read in the Men's Health magazine right before the show that they are still married. So, but it's only been a few weeks. It still should be honeymoon phase. But then there was a post in our group, He Said, She Said, on Facebook. So I'd love for you to join that group and participate in some of the comments that go on. I had posted from someone who said that she had been married for 3 months, and that she felt the relationship wasn't going to make it. And how many people had commented that the first 2 months, 3 months of a relationship are the hardest. And I just have never experienced for myself, but how many people agree with that time was the hardest? And I guess it would be to some degree if you're just finding out all these different things and trying to get past. If you just found out they have debt, if you just found out they weren't sexually attracted to you, if you just, that maybe that's the hard part for me, that it was the happiest kind of beginning. So, but I realized for others it doesn't go that way. But if you saw the movie, I'd love for you to tell me what you thought, or the series. It was a series on Netflix, or go watch it and then come back and come on my Facebook Live where I'm streaming from, and tell me what you think once you see the show. I love to talk to you about it. Did you get the same thing from it? I walked away feeling like love isn't blind. So out of watching this 3 week, that it could be blind, and that disability could actually be, it could be blind, but it should not be blind, because life is hard as it is, and going through it blind is an obstacle I just kind of don't want to start out facing. But I do commend Lauren and Cameron, who said despite all of these obstacles we'll make it work, and I do commend people who can do that. I'm not saying that it can't work, but I know at the age where I was falling in love, I didn't have the tools it takes to make the disability not, I didn't know Braille. I'm going to use the blindness as I didn't have all the skills set to get through that disability without facing an ending that wouldn't be pleasant. So, and at the age some of these people were getting married, 27, 28, in the early 30s, do they have those tools to get past some of the things that they'll face going into something so blindly? So that's my take on the show, Love is Blind. And so I love to know again what you think. Join in that conversation. Add what you think on this live thread for me of what you think about the show, Love is Blind. Do you think you could love someone blindly? I'm going no. I could be blind to some things, but I can't love blindly, if that makes sense. So John says they were pigeonholed into a marriage show, then asked to negotiate a lifetime of togetherness. It's similar to you seeing a pair of shoes online in the right color and dimensions. You buy them, and then arriving, you step into it, and it just isn't right for you. It's that dress women put it's that dress women buy in the store because it looks good, and then when they get it home, they stare at it in the mirror, and they see that the back of their closet, it sits in the back of their closet and is never seen again. I totally agree with that you can love something in the moment and it totally fits right and it looks like it's the perfect fit, and you get in a different lighting when you get home, and you're not in that big old bright light, and you get in your dim and you start seeing all the imperfections, and that the rolls that are hanging out of it, and that it kind of doesn't fit with any of the shoes you have, and you've bought it and you really did love it in the beginning, but like you say, it sits in the closet. So I think I love that analogy, John, because I do feel it's very, very, very similar to that. So you guys, you've been tuned in to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. And I'd love for you guys, if you would like to be on the show and be a guest, have a topic you like to talk about, inbox me on Wanda B like a bumblebee on social media. So please inbox me, be on the show. If you'd like to have your own show here at Intellectual Radio, they have 3 different shows at the station. And anyone who likes podcasting, likes talking, maybe it wants to have guests in, or tired of podcasting in the car or at their home or basement and want a place that they can go to do it at, invite guests, this is a wonderful place for that. That number is 708-223-8953, 708-223-8953. If you want to do what I'm doing now and have a subject you'd like to talk about or share with people, and you can do this too. So I love for you to do it. And thank you, John, being my co-host today. T Bizzle, all the people who chimed in today. I so appreciate you guys, people who shared the broadcast. Thank you, T Bizzle. Thank you, John Russo, for sharing. Thank you, Terry, for viewing. T Marie's, you got to check out her salad dressing. Go into a Mariano. What's the other food store? Oh my goodness, the one. I'm going to come up with it, but go check out Essie Marie's. Go into the refrigerated section where the dressings are and get her dressings. What? Whole Foods. Go into Whole Foods and get it. Chrissy, check her out. She has a online store as well. John Russo, Derek Ellaby, Howard Rivers. Thank you guys for tuning in. I so appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing the show and liking it. And I will see you guys next week, 2 p.m. on He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. Thank you guys. Thank you.
He said, she said, clearing up the drama with Wanda.
He said, she said.
Thanks for tuning in to He Said, She Said with Wanda B. Sunday afternoons at 2 on IntellectualRadio.com.